Now, newly released satellite imagery appears to show that China has put missile defense systems and anti-aircraft guns on all 7 of the islands it has constructed in the South China Sea. Now, Beijing has repeatedly promised that it would not militarize the islands. The Asia Maritime Transparency Initiative, a Washington-based research institute, says the photographic evidence it has, which you can see now, shows China has installed significant defense capabilities on the islands. China has remained tight-lipped on the allegations thus far. Earlier in the day, the top U.S. military official in the Pacific, Admiral Harry Harris, said Washington will not allow China to unilaterally close down a shared domain. He said the U.S. will cooperate when it can, but it will be ready to confront China if the need arises.
I'll echo Secretary of Defense Carter when he says that the Indo-Asia-Pacific region is the most consequential region for America's future. This fact alone makes the U.S.-Australia strategic alliance more important than ever before. I say this often, but it's worth repeating. We will cooperate where we can, but we will be ready to confront where we must. We will continue to exercise and protect our rights on the high seas, in the air, in space, and in cyber, wherever international law allows.
It appears North Korea has conducted a submarine-launched ballistic missile test, this time, though, on land. Citing a U.S. intelligence official, Japanese broadcaster NHK reported Thursday that the test was likely aimed at developing so-called cold launch technology. The cold launch method is where the missile is expelled from the submarine by gas and ignited once it's in the air. Cold launches can reduce damage to the missile. It can also make it easier to conceal the launch location. The North has test-fired 3 SLBMs this year, but only the most recent one, in August, was deemed a success.
The North Atlantic Council, which is the principal decision-making body of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or NATO, is scheduled to hold a special meeting on North Korea's nuclear and missile threats at its headquarters in Brussels on Thursday. What's noteworthy is that this will be the first NATO meeting exclusively dealing with this issue. According to South Korea's foreign ministry, NATO is expected to send a strong message of condemnation to North Korea based on the outcome of the meeting. The organization has released 6 such messages this year alone after the regime's nuclear and missile tests. South Korea has had a partnership with the 28-member organization since 2006.
South Korea's military plans to develop long-range air-to-surface missiles that can accurately target the North Korean capital of Pyongyang from as far as South Korea's central city of Daejeon. The 2 cities are 500 kilometers apart.
South Korea's arms procurement agency said on Wednesday that it plans to develop air-to-surface missiles similar to the Taurus missiles from Germany. Apart from importing 260 long-range Taurus missiles from Berlin by 2018, the Defense Acquisition Program Administration is also planning to develop 200 similar missiles using solely homegrown technology.
We plan to develop the missiles with the nation's technology hosted by the Agency of Defense Development. The project is scheduled to kick off in 2018.
The leader of Iran's Islamic Revolution says Palestine will be liberated on the back of resistance by Palestinian groups. Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei made a comment at a meeting with Secretary General of the Islamic Jihad Movement Ramazan Abdullah. He said Israel will not continue to exist in 25 years in case of unity among Palestinians and Muslims. The leader highlighted resistance and struggle as the only way to save the Al-Aqsa Mosque. The leader of the Islamic Revolution stressed that Palestine is the major issue of the Muslim world. Ayatollah Khamenei believes the U.S. is behind all regional problems, aiming to sideline the Palestinian issue. The Secretary General of the Islamic Jihad, Ramazan Abdullah, hailed Iran's support. He said that some Arab countries ignore the cause of Palestine and ally with Israel.
We are faced with a very unstable world, which, while it affords us new opportunities, also presents new dangers. The dangers come primarily from militant Islam, either led by the radical Shiites headed by Iran, or led by the radical Sunnis at the moment headed by ISIS. These are 2 formidable dangers, and we are committed to help our friends, the same embattled societies, counter the threat of terrorism, but also bolster our defenses in other ways, and we are constantly in touch on this and prepared to do more with each other. I welcome that. We want to achieve peace. Peace is dependent on security. And ultimately, if you don't have the capacity to defend the peace, it collapses very rapidly in our area.
According to the Islamic State, Israel is reported to have sent 3 targeted airstrikes against them in the Sinai Peninsula yesterday. Israel has neither confirmed nor denied the allegations. In addition to ISIS fighters, Abdullah Kishta, an ex-senior member of Hamas, was also reportedly killed. Kishta is believed to be the connection between ISIS in the Sinai Peninsula and Hamas in Gaza by assisting in the smuggling of weapons and trained militants between the two terror groups. In what can be considered a positive light, the fight against Hamas and the Islamic State, both considered internationally recognized terror organizations, has brought Egypt and Israel closer together. Disregarding a 1979 peace treaty, Israel has allowed Egypt to move forces closer to the border, and Egypt has given permission multiple times to Israeli air forces to operate in their territory, all in efforts to quash the spread of militant Islamic terror. The Israeli ambassador to Cairo, Chaim Cohen, said of the situation, quote, "This is one of the best times we've ever had. There's good cooperation between the armies, we have understandings about the Sinai Peninsula, and basically we see eye to eye on the development in the region," end quote.
And Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Çavuşoğlu says his country, Russia and Iran will hold a summit later this month in Moscow to find a political solution for Syria. And Çavuşoğlu says Ankara is working hard to establish a nationwide ceasefire in the war-torn country, and Turkey supports some rebel groups in Syria while Russia and Iran back the government.
A Fox News alert right now, a very serious story. ISIS terrorists reportedly buying arsenals of military-grade weapons and materials on what's being described as an industrial scale. An alarming new report out says that extremists are manufacturing and stocking explosives, rockets, and drones in bulk. The majority of the materials coming from the same factories in Turkey. The new report also says ISIS is producing ammunition at an unprecedented rate.
Residents say they haven't seen this much food in ages. Dried goods and other supplies discovered at the abandoned headquarters of a local rebel group in eastern Aleppo after the militants withdrew in the face of a government advance. Residents accuse the so-called Army of Islam rebels who were here of keeping much-needed civilian aid packages for themselves.
They forbid us from everything. There's no milk, there's no cooking, there's no meat.
They kept all these items here and there. They did not allow us to eat even a piece of bread. We died out of hunger.
Fear stalks the streets of eastern Aleppo as airstrikes and shelling rock some districts again, despite a brokered ceasefire, and as a plan for a mass evacuation of rebel-held neighborhoods stalls.
This week, Syrian President Bashar al-Assad said in an interview that U.S. President-elect Donald Trump could become a natural ally if he shows that he is sincere about fighting terrorism. In the interview with Russian state television, which was aired on Wednesday, Assad added that he was encouraged by Trump's declarations during the election campaign about fighting terrorism and not interfering in the internal affairs of other countries.
از شخصیت هایت کم بس از سیاست او تشتی که تابع شخصیت مروفکیه از حش بی خود کم و حش افکار تویت کم بزنس هایت کم.
Forbes magazine has named Russian President Vladimir Putin and US President-elect Donald Trump as the 2 most powerful people in the world. Putin actually tops the list and does so for the 4th year in a row, with the business magazine citing Russia's far-reaching influence around the world, from Syria to the United States itself. Trump's election win earns him second spot, with outgoing President Barack Obama tumbling down the list from 3rd to 48th. The rest of the top 5 includes Angela Merkel, the highest placed woman, Chinese President Xi Jinping and Pope Francis. There's 74 people on the list. Now in its 8th year, we're judged on how many people they have power over, their financial resources, whether they influence more than one sphere, and how actively they wield their power.
More than half of Palestinians polled want President-elect Donald Trump to stay out of the peace process with Israel. The survey by the Palestinian Center for Policy and Survey Research found that 53% want Trump to stay out, 30% want him to play a major role in the process, and 10% want the president-elect to continue with the same role as the current administration. Despite President Barack Obama's declaring from the beginning his intentions to make an Israeli-Palestinian peace agreement a priority, the poll shows that 83% of Palestinians believe that he did not make serious efforts to resolve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. 10% say that he did. Further, regarding the possibility of a two-state solution, the poll found that 65% of Palestinians no longer believe the two-state solution is possible, whereas 31% still have hope that it can be achieved.
The UN Human Rights Council has called for a protection force in South Sudan to prevent a Rwanda-like genocide. A UN commission on South Sudan warned earlier this month that ethnic cleansing is taking place in some areas of the country. The Human Rights Council raised the same concerns on Wednesday.
Urge the immediate deployment of the 4,000-strong regional protection force for South Sudan. It's been a number of months since July when the regional protection force was first spoken about. It's December now.
These demonstrators are chanting right by Angela Merkel's office to stop her from deporting refugees. But Germany's chancellor doesn't appear to be listening. This month, her government plans to begin flying failed asylum seekers back to Afghanistan. The German government says some parts of Afghanistan are now safe. But that's an idea many find questionable, since the country has been at war for decades, and much of it remains under Taliban control. According to a recent report, about 12,000 refugees from Afghanistan could face deportation. That's about 5% of the total number seeking asylum in Germany. The plan sends a warning to Afghans and others who might be considering making the journey. It's part of a larger policy shift in Berlin.
Hysteria in America over accusations that Russian hackers influenced the presidential vote, now conveniently spreading to Germany, which of course is gearing up for its own general election next year. Newspapers have been flooded with headlines warning of possible Kremlin interference.
We've seen it in the US, we've seen it in the United Kingdom. It now seems that it's here as well in Germany. Russia represents the biggest threat to your daily lives, if you read the newspapers anyway. Germany's spy chief has said that Russia could influence next year's federal elections, and that's been lapped up by the media here, with article after article after article all saying that the votes of the German people might not matter if Kremlin-backed hackers have a different opinion. If we look at today's headlines in one of the country's major newspapers, the Frankfurter Allgemeinen, Russia's mentioned twice on the front page. In the story just up here about Aleppo, saying that Russia never wanted to have any kind of peaceful or diplomatic solution to the conflict. And then Russia again mentioned in relation to hacking in the United States and potentially attempting to influence the outcome of the election, and also its closeness allegedly to Donald Trump. It would seem that with so much mentions of Russia going on in the German press, it seems there's nothing else left for them to write about.
Inside of the quiet and now empty town of Bunker Hill Police Department, there's a big controversy brewing that could end with a lawsuit. Their entire police department quit, blaming the town council.
We've had issues with the town board. You know, there was some activity there that I felt like they were serving their own agenda.
Michael Tomlinson has served as town marshal of Bunker Hill for 4 years, until last night when he and 4 other officers handed over these resignation letters to the council, telling them they've had enough.
Wouldn't communicate with us or the officers. They kept scaling things back.
In their resignation letters, the officers accuse council members of asking them to do illegal, unethical, and immoral things. They cited examples like asking police to run background checks on other town councilors to find their criminal history. The officers also claimed they were threatened when they said no. Another issue they brought up in the letter, their safety. The officers tell us they were all forced to share one set of body armor, putting their lives on the line while they're out making arrests and serving warrants. On top of all of that, Thomason tells us his resignation was personal. He was diagnosed with cancer last year, but when he was ready to go back to work in May, Thomason says they would only allow him to work part-time. He blames the town councilors and plans to file a lawsuit against them.
They came at me and said that it's costing the town way too much money because of my insurance. And they said, we're going to take you down to part-time.
President Obama enacted a new rule Wednesday to prevent state governments from defunding abortion providers like Planned Parenthood for political reasons. The rule says states can't deny Title X funding, which deals with family planning, to any project for a reason that's unrelated to the ability to deliver services to program beneficiaries in an effective manner. Over the past 5 years, nearly half of all state legislatures have tried to cut funding from Planned Parenthood because some of its locations provide abortion services. Planned Parenthood reportedly gets $70 million per year in Title X funding, though federal rules prevent the healthcare provider from spending any of that money on abortions. President-elect Donald Trump has promised to undo a lot of Obama's work right when he gets into office, but this rule won't be easy to do away with. The Department of Health and Human Services says repealing this rule would either require the incoming administration to make a new rule or the House, Senate, and President to come together with a joint resolution of disapproval. The rule is set to go into effect January 18th, just 2 days before Trump's inauguration.
Amazon has broken new ground. Well, technically new air, after completing the company's first delivery by drone. The Army-style airdrop took 13 minutes from order to delivery. The flight was entirely autonomous, no pilot needed. The only human element was the employee who packed the box. These drones do have limitations, starting with their 5-pound maximum on cargo and limited maneuverability. The delivery is part of beta testing being done in the UK, where Amazon is allowed to fly drones beyond the controller's line of sight, something that's still illegal in the US. Amazon and several other companies have partnered with NASA and the US Federal Aviation Administration to develop an air traffic control system for drones and other devices flying around at lower altitudes. Their goal is to send their research to the FAA for review by 2019.
Industry experts claim that while 2016 saw tech companies launch dozens of products and services powered by artificial intelligence, 2017 will see AI reaching into other parts of mainstream business. According to IBM Chief Innovation Officer Bernie Meyerson, 2017 will be the year of the solution as opposed to the year of the experiment. Experts predict that artificial intelligence will start to be seen in banks, retailers, and pharmaceutical companies. However, according to Chris Curran, Chief Technologist of Consulting for PwC Consulting, AI will remain confined to narrow tasks like recognizing speech. A genuine artificial intelligence, something more like our own brains, still remains distant.
Earth is due for an extinction-level asteroid hit. That's according to a NASA researcher who presented the warning to fellow scientists Monday. He says while these civilization-killing types of asteroids are extremely rare, they tend to hit 50 to 60 million years apart. And given the belief a comet wiped out the dinosaurs 65 million years ago, we're kind of overdue for one. But don't worry, even though NASA admits we aren't really prepared for such an event, researchers have come up with an idea to build a rocket that can be deployed to intercept and destroy a potentially dangerous asteroid. Or we could just send Bruce Willis to do it. Well, one postal worker in North Carolina is being praised this week after saving dozens of packages from her burning mail truck. Local fire department officials said on Tuesday the truck caught fire near its engine while the worker was on her route. She and a stranger quickly jumped into action and rescued 99% of the packages inside. Incredible dedication. Danielle Medina shared this picture on Facebook, calling it a proud dad moment. He wrote, We were driving down South 60th Street and my two sons, aged 10 and 6, asked me to pull over because they just seen a guy in a wheelchair trying to shovel his corner lot and they wanted to help. Since the picture was posted 3 days ago, it has been shared and liked by thousands.